Hello, my name is Samuel Welch, and today we are going to be assembling the 3-piece WTS Epiphany Series drum kit. The nice thing about this is you're going to get to know your drums and the WTS system so that you can be confident every gig, anytime you have to change drum heads. It's just good to know your instrument. So being able to assemble it right from the get-go, you're going to get to know it very well. So I'm going to follow along with the Epiphany Series Owner's Manual. And we're just going to go step by step and assemble this drum kit. Before we get started, give yourself a nice big area that's clean so that you can unpack everything, set everything out and organize it. It's just going to make this assembly process much easier. Now you're going to need a couple of tools which are not included in the box. So you're going to need an 1/8 inch Allen key, a 3/8 inch open-ended wrench or socket. So the first drum that we're going to assemble is going to be the 12-inch tom-tom. So that includes your shell. You will have 2 hoops with pulleys attached to it, your tuning knob with all of the associated hardware, and then of course your drum heads and cable. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install this tuning knob, okay? Now what I like to do first is take a look and make sure that the badge is up. We'll grab our tuning knob, and basically what you've got here is a rubber pad that will go underneath each foot of this tuning knob, and then the bolts, nuts, and washers. So you're going to take a flat washer, and then a toothed washer, and then a nut, and we're just going to go, just make sure that that nut is on there to hold it on. So now that's not going to fall off, and we can go ahead and put our other bolts in. When you're ready to do the final tightening on these bolts, hold the nut from the back side with your open-ended wrench. Hold this stationary while you tighten the bolt from the front side. Tighten the screws until they are snug and this rubber pad begins to compress. If you look in your manual, you're going to see the drum sitting upright and the way that everything goes together here. But when I actually assemble a drum, I flip it over. And I'll show you the reason for that in just a second. So the next thing is we're going to go ahead and grab our drum heads. So as I mentioned, I'm going to assemble this upside down. So this will be the top hoop with the batter side head. And I'm going to go ahead and place that in here. And then I'm going to flip the drum over. So we've got our top head and our top hoop. Now we're going to place our resonant head and our bottom hoop. Now if you notice, we've got our pulleys alternating here, okay? So we're kind of aligning everything. Now if you're wondering what that alignment looks like, you can take that page of your manual, flip it upside down, and take a look at this tuning knob here. You see that? So now we're looking at the drum, and we're making sure that this top pulley, looking at this upside down, it looks like the bottom, but this is our batter head, remember. So we've got a pulley, then our tuning knob, and then a pulley, and then the next pulley is all the way over here, okay? So alignment is important when it comes to the WTS drums. Basically, you don't want it to be the opposite, where you have a pulley that's right next to your tuning knob. See, that can kind of get in the way there. So that's the reason why we have this particular alignment. And hold on to this manual, because this is just a good reference for you, okay? Now we're getting ready to assemble our cable. And as I mentioned, I would tell you why we flip the drum upside down to do this. The reason is that you have easier access and you can see this winding post a lot better when it's upside down. So that's why I like to assemble the drums flipped over, because I can access this winding post a lot easier. Now, let's just look at this part real quick. You're gonna notice that there's several holes in that winding post, okay? So you have a big one with a big recess in it and then two small holes. So we're gonna start off by grabbing our cable. Make sure you grab the right one. So we're doing the 12x8 tom-tom right now. And your cable is gonna have a ball on one end and just a welded end on the other. So we're gonna take that welded end. We are now gonna go in through that receptacle, pull it all the way through until that ball sits inside of that receptacle there. Now, we're gonna start with the closest pulley, and we're gonna lace this cable alternating between the top and bottom heads. Now, it's important to start with this pulley here. You could start with this one if you wanted to, but you don't want to accidentally wrap around this tuning bracket. So that's why I like to start with the closest pulley, just to make sure we're not wrapping around any hardware that we don't want to be. So I like to do a couple of pulleys at a time and then pull it through. So again, I'll just lace this just like you're lacing a shoe, and then I'll pull it through. Now this is a process you'll become familiar with because it's how you change heads. But as you can see, it's very simple. I know this can be a little bit of a lifestyle change for drummers because it's more like changing a guitar string. But you'll find after you do it a couple of times that the process just gets easier and easier, and eventually you'll get to a point where you can change a drum head in just a couple of minutes. And through the last pulley here, and then we're gonna go straight from this last pulley back to the winding post, okay? You can see there's two holes on the other side of that cast ball receptacle there. So we're gonna go through one of those holes and then back up through the other hole. Now just to show you what it looks like on the other side, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this. But this isn't something you necessarily have to do when you're changing heads yourself here. So you'll see that there's kind of a cutout in between the two holes on the other side. And so basically what we're doing is we're looping this back through that other hole, and then we're gonna pull it tight. And this is awkward just because of the way I moved it to try to show you guys. But you can see that that cable is now sitting inside that channel. When I turn this the other way here, you're gonna see that we've got about a ½ inch of cable kind of sticking out that end, and then the rest of the cable is right here. Okay, so you can see it went through the winding post and looped back through that other hole, and then it's sitting inside that channel with about a ½ inch sticking out. And that's exactly what we're looking for here. So now we're gonna leave that, and we are going to tighten this up. Now what I like to do is I take up slack here. So you can see I'm grabbing both ends of this cable, or I grab a couple of the runs, and I try to pull that slack just so I have a little bit of tension on this cable while I'm winding it. So I'm gonna start with this run kind of going behind this little tail we've got here. Let's get you a closer view. Okay. And so we're just gonna start tightening it up. As we get about halfway, you are gonna see that channel again. Now what we want is for the cable to actually wrap over that channel. So now I'm just going to kind of move it over with my finger, tighten it up a little bit more, so you can see we are wrapping over that channel in there. Okay? And now you just keep tightening it up until we don't have any more slack. Now I like the cable to have a nice clean wind around it, so I'll kind of adjust with my thumbnail there, as I tighten this up, just to make sure it's just cleanly winding around. It is okay if the cable overlaps itself, that's not a big deal at all. But I just like it to look nice and uniform. And again, I'm keeping tension right here because that's keeping it tight here. If I was to loosen this up, well, I've gotten far enough now, but if I was to loosen that up, it's possible that the cable would kind of, it wouldn't be tight around that post anymore. And we want it to stay nice and tight around there. So now I've gotten to a point where the cable's still a little bit loose, but now I want to do my final alignment. And this is where you can turn your drum back over. And let's turn our manual back over the right way as well. And we want to look at this alignment here, okay? So I like to make sure that the badge is aligned. So on the rack tom, that means it's aligned with this bottom pulley, okay? And that's what those pictures are for, is so that you're getting the proper alignment. And the way that I'm doing that is I'm just rotating the hoop, okay? So these hoops can kind of rotate when you don't have too much pressure on the heads. You see that? Okay. And if it's not moving, just loosen it up a little bit more. But what I like to do is use the badge as a reference. I think that's a great reference. You just kind of align that pulley there and you make sure that looks pretty even on either side, and then you're good to go. So now we can just go ahead and tighten it up. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the heads and hoops are all centered on themselves as well. You can look from this side. I can see it's hugging this side a little bit, so I'll just kind of scoot that head over a little bit like that and just kind of center everything up. And then I'll also put a little bit of pressure on this opposite side just the first time that we tune up the heads here, just to kind of make sure everything stays aligned. Now you get to realize the full benefit of the WTS system, because that drum's already in tune and it is done. So now we're going to move on. So next will be the floor tom assembly. So you grab your floor tom shell, and the assembly process is the same as it was on the rack tom. This floor tom shell already has its floor tom brackets and its tuning knob, so all we have to do is assemble the heads and the cable. Now, just like our rack tom, I want to assemble this upside down. We're going to start by flipping our manual upside down just so we don't get confused by that. We are going to take our batter head, place it in the hoop here. Next, your resonant head and your hoop. Now with the floor toms, a good reference to make sure that you've aligned things correctly is that you have a pulley on either side of the floor tom leg bracket. So that's just another good reference for you. So once again, we've kind of have our preliminary alignment going on. Now we're going to grab our cable. Once again, we're going to take the end that does not have the ball on it, and we're going to go through the large hole of that winding post and pull that all the way through until that ball sits inside the winding post. It's good to make sure you're back in alignment. Okay. If you get confused, make sure you just reference your drawing on the manual, because that's going to tell you exactly how everything's aligned. And now we're just going to go to the closest pulley over here. Again, I like to do a couple of them and then pull it through, especially on the floor tom, so you can see how that just looped around that pulley. On the floor tom, we have a little bit more hardware on the drum, like these floor tom leg brackets. So you just want to make sure that you're avoiding those and you're just guiding this cable along the way. I think I'll do 3 pulleys this time. I'll pull that through and see, make sure it's not wrapping around that leg bracket there. And we just keep going around. Okay, now once again, we have extra length here, and that is a good thing. Make sure you don't cut this cable. The cable that's included in the Epiphany Series drums is exact length. Okay, so just like the rack tom, we are going to thread this cable through one of the small holes first. Now I like to turn this, we're just gonna go and rotate this here. So I'm coming in from the side. Okay, so we're going in from the same side where the cast ball is, and then we're looping around and then tightening it up, leaving about a 1/2 inch of tail on there. Okay, you see that channel here? That channel there? We want that cable to wrap over it, and that's gonna help secure the cable so it doesn't slip. So just as you're turning this around, before it goes too far, you can just kind of guide that over. Sometimes you need to go a little further. There it goes. And then we're gonna, as we keep winding around here, again, I like to kind of move the cable out of the way a little bit. It's okay if it wraps on itself, remember. So just keep going until you don't have any more slack. Now if you check out our head change video, you're gonna find a faster way to do this. I'm going slow just because I'm assuming this is your first time assembling a WTS drum, but it does get quicker, I promise. Okay, so now we've got that pretty well wrapped around, except that now we just wanna check our alignment, okay? Now, if you want, you can go ahead and center the head. That looks good. Flip the drum over. With the coated head, sometimes it's hard to see if it's centered, so I kind of just feel for it. So now we're just checking our alignment with our manual for the floor tom. I like to use the badge as a reference. So you can see the drum is now upright again, with the floor tom brackets on the bottom, a pulley on either side of the floor tom brackets. You have a pulley aligned, the top pulley is aligned with the badge, and a pulley on either side of that. Again, reference this manual for alignment. Alignment is important with WTS drums. Now you can go ahead and tighten that up. Like we did before, you can flip it over just to make sure things stay centered. And just like that, you're good to go. Now the last drum is the bass drum. So first we are going to take our bass drum hoops, and now you are going to see that there is Velcro attached to these hoops, and on your claw you'll also see Velcro. So this is gonna show you not only where to put it, but which direction, okay? You can see that the wide end is the claw end. So now all you have to do is hook this over and stick it, and it'll stay on that hoop. So now we're just gonna go around and attach all of the claws to these bass drum hoops. Align that front head so that the logo is in line with one of your bass claws here. Take a look at your manual, and we're looking at the bass drum, and you can see how this is assembled. So we've got our front resonant head, we've put our resonant head in the hoop, and now we're going to line the badge with a claw, and just make sure that the badge is reading towards the front resonant side of your bass drum. Now, one thing that is slightly different with the bass drum is that there's not really a top and bottom, rather a front and a back. So when you install the tuning knob, you want to make sure you install it in the correct manner. One good way to do this is to go ahead and extend out your bass drum spurs and set your bass drum upright, And so you can see you want the tuning knob pointing up. If you accidentally have it upside down and you extend these bass drum spurs, the tuning knob would be pointing down. So just something to think about. The way that looks once it's actually sitting in your head, so right now we've got the front resonant side head here. So just to check and make sure it's correct. Again, you align the badge with your top claw here, and when you turn that drum, you can see that the tuning knob is actually upside down right now, and that's the way it's supposed to be with the bass drum. So you can go ahead and string everything up just like that. Just something to double check before you lace up your cable. Now we'll take our batter head. And our other hoop. Remember, we are alternating our pulleys, so I'm going to align it in that fashion. And we can check with our manual that everything is aligned just like we see in these pictures here. Now we can grab our bass drum cable and string it up just like we have with the rest of the drums. Congratulations, you have assembled your Epiphany Series drums. You're ready to rock, and most importantly, now you know how to use this system. Changing heads is going to be so much easier now that you've done this once before. Again, all you have to do is loosen up the cable, unlace it, place your head, and tighten it back up. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us anytime. Go to WTSdrums.com. There's a contact button there. Additionally, hold on to your manual. If you lose it, there are manuals online as well. If you go, again, just go to our website. But this is going to show you, the head changing process again, so you don't have to watch this video again if you don't want to. Also, different adjustments such as the tuning knob. You'll notice that there's a small flathead screw on the front here. You want that to be tightened down enough that it's not loose, but you can actually adjust how hard this is to turn with this adjustment right here. If you tighten it up, it's going to lock this tension. If you loosen it up just a little bit, it's going to make it easier to turn. You just want to make sure that it's not too loose. So make sure you hold on to your manual so that you can look at the periodic maintenance. It's like you would with any other drum set. Every once in a while when you change heads, you want to check the screws inside are still tight. These are very resonant drums, so sometimes a screw will start to loosen up or something. The same thing will happen on tension rod drums. So if you hold on to this manual, you'll be able to see the periodic maintenance we recommend. I hope that you enjoy your Epiphany Series drums. Again, reach out to us anytime if you ever have any questions, and drum on.